Welcome to Boris FX Live. Sponsored by Dell Precision Workstations. Create without limits. And by NVIDIA. And Intel.
Hello everyone and welcome to Boris FX Live. My name is Ben Brownlee for Boris FX and thank you for joining us for our second in our new look Boris FX Live streams, where we're going to be talking about the art of trailer editing. This is something I've been looking forward to for a long time. We've got a couple of fantastic theatrical trailer editors coming in from Trailer Park, who is going to be discussing the art of trailers with us. So I couldn't be more excited about that. I am also going to be talking to our famous Mr. Brian Fox, who's going to be co-hosting with me today. Hello, Mr. Brian.
It works. It all works, right?
It all works. Brian is also behind the switching again today, so he's performing dual roles as co-host and as button pusher. So hopefully we're all going to go really smoothly.
Way to demean my art, Ben. Thank you so much for that.
Well, look, I'm a fellow button pusher as well, so it's meant as a term of endearment.
I mean, no, this is going to be a fun one. Obviously, like trailers are near and dear to both our hearts. I mean, holy crap, that Interstellar trailer. Good Lord. I'm like weeping, weeping in the pre-show.
Save it. Save it.
Okay, cool.
We've got too much of this to do. So save it. I actually want to say we are going to say thank you to our sponsors for helping bring our live stream in. And we are sponsored today by Dell, Intel, and NVIDIA. And so thank you very much to them. Today's live stream is brought to you by Dell Technologies and NVIDIA. Together, Dell Precision Workstations with NVIDIA Quattro RTX professional GPUs provide the performance and reliability you need for the creative workflows you perform every day using Boris FX software. There we go. So thank you very much to Dell, NVIDIA, and Intel for helping to sponsor today's show. We are also, because we're live, we're also taking questions from you as well. So you are encouraged to ask your questions live. How do you do that? It's simple. All you have to do is go to borisfxlive.com and you'll see the chat window there. Or if you're watching on YouTube, then you can use the YouTube chat as well. We are also going to be giving away a huge prize today as well. We're going to be giving away a 12-month subscription of the Boris FX Suite. So that's everything that we create. So including Silhouette, Continuum, Sapphire, Mocha, and the brand new optics. So one lucky winner is going to go away with a 12-month subscription of the Boris FX Suite. How do we enter that? Again, just head on over to Boris FX Live, and at the bottom of the page you'll find out all the different ways that you can enter there. Full terms and conditions are also found on the website. So basically head on over to borisfxlive.com to do all of the fun stuff. All right, so let's actually get on, and I want to introduce our two guests as well. So our first one is a theatrical editor from Trailer Park. It's Yuhei Ogawa. Apologies for butchering the name.
Happy to be here.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's really is our pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much.
And our
Brian Fox certainly knows how to push my buttons.
That's right. I love it. Let's kick it. Let's get going.
I think we will. And our second guest is also from Trailer Park, and he is senior theatrical editor, Mr. Christian Capello-Colon. Hello, Christian.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
All very good. So thanks very much for joining us. It's absolutely going to be our pleasure to have this chat for the next hour. I say it's our pleasure. It's actually going to be my pleasure. So I'm not sure how all the audience is gonna be with me just geeking out about trailers for an hour. So we'll see about that. Well, what I thought we'd do before we actually get into to sort of credits and things is actually just get started with some kind of classic trailers just to see how we got here. And just kind of like the art of theatrical trailers, or in fact trailer cutting in general, has changed a lot. You know, it's changed a lot even in my lifetime. I'm a young 40-something now, so I remember when you know, cinemas could still have smoking sections, and you wouldn't always go into a screening as well. You would just kind of just hop in and, you know, you'd watch a film where it started and it would just restart at some point. So
Ben, we're the same age. I think that's a European thing because I don't remember smoking in theaters.
You don't remember smoking in theatre? You are very lucky, sir, because a smoking section in a theatre is as ridiculous as a smoking section in a plane. It didn't actually work. It just made everything stinky. Yeah. So the whole point of trailers was, oh yeah. So the whole point of trailers was to kind of just be something that would be thrown on at the end of a film to get people to go out and then, you know, come back again, you know, another day. But I'm gonna start with actually a trailer from 1955, if we can cue up the VT here, and this is a trailer for Kiss Me Deadly. So if we just have a little watch of that, and Brian's not even starting it from the beginning. That's a very bold choice.
Touche.
Yeah. There we go.
How's that? Is that better?
There we go. There we go. Lovely. So, like, in the first 30 seconds, they're really giving you everything you could possibly want out of this film.
Girls fleeing in terror from things beyond description.
Who are you?
My name is Mike Hammer, if it matters.
What do you want?
He was out to get men who tortured women and killed with the ferocity of wild beasts. This was their jungle. Drop the knife!
And that was the first trailer. So before we go further, first initial thoughts on that, Yuhei.
Well, so the interesting thing about that is, like, back in the day, trailers were, like you said, used to be played pretty much after the movie. That's why it's called trailer, right? Until the next the showtime begins. But I mean, it's basically like just a little more than a synopsis of a movie. But what I find interesting about that trailer is that, like, it definitely uses a montage as a way to disorient you quite a bit. You know, just that try to provoke that what the F kind of reaction from the audience, you know to draw you in. So that part is still very much alive and strong. That element of provoking, uneasy emotions is definitely there, even in that early stage of trailer making art.
And also some nice jump cuts as well, or repeating a particular shot. So not specifically a jump cut, but there is a rhythm to the trailer still.
Definitely.
And that's something I think we're going to be coming back to again. One of the things I also found was interesting about that trailer is how people are very, very spoiler averse nowadays. If you didn't want to see spoilers in that particular trailer, they basically show the final shots of the film as the final shots of that trailer. Like, literally the whole of that last little beat was the last shot of the film before it rolled into credits, which I I think it's a very bold choice, and hopefully we'll see that in modern trailers as well. Coming back. Oh, let's look at the next one, because then I want to bring Christian into this. The next one is from 1968.
Somewhere in the universe there has to be something better than man.
And this is Planet of the Apes.
Get out a last signal!
One of my all-time favorite movies.
The world he finds out in the galaxy
That
will
was a
challenge every idea you've ever
defocused
had
transition
in
right there.
A planet where man is the lowest order of living things. And the
Sapphire back in the
superior
day.
beings are apes.
In camera.
They build the cities,
That was not in camera.
make the laws, the gods, and control the guns that hunt a race of lowly, terrified humans who run wild in the jungles, are caged in the prisons, and stuffed in the museums. 20th Century Fox
Spoiler alert.
transforms the motion picture screen into Planet of the Apes.
Now, this is actually cut down from a 3-minute trailer. The second half of that trailer is sort of Charlton Heston talking to camera for about 45 seconds about stuff. But I thought we'd just show the beginning of that, because I think that shows a sort of evolution of what was going on there. Christian, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think, we're very clearly seeing an evolution to where, certain interesting plot points in the previous trailer were more directed towards the thrill of what was to be experienced with the film. Whereas in this one, it's like, okay, here's a little bit more of the plot and the story. And obviously calling out one of the biggest stars at the time, Charlton Heston, was such a huge selling point for the movie. I don't know what audiences were reluctant to have been seeing at that time, especially with the sort of cutting edge makeup that we know that Planet of the Apes was known for. But I think there was this very silly thing to be seen on screen, which is some of those ape characters were just ridiculous. But the thing that I admire the most of watching trailers from the past are the use of transitions, the swipes, the Venetian blind kind of effects, the porthole kind of widening, all these prototypical, stereotypical kind of cliche transitions that you would see so much back in the day that you're not really seeing these days. I know that it was definitely a ploy on behalf of the studio to, and this is just speaking to the second half of the trailer, to have Charlton Heston speak directly to the audience and say, hey, here's so-and-so from this picture and so-and-so from this picture, but you won't recognize them because they're in ape makeup, which I thought was really interesting. So yeah, it's a great film. Brian, I'm with you on that one. That's one of my favorites too.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. It's a classic for a reason. And yeah, I think you nailed it. The use of voiceover to sort of start to bring people through with telling them what the story was. Everything's a lot more kind of plot driven. Yet, yeah, like the second half of the one showing a lot more focus on actors, and we get to see the actor without makeup as a side by side comparison, which is quite interesting to my mind. And obviously there were several different cuts of that trailer as well. They didn't just cut the one theatrical trailer. There are actually lots of different versions of the Planet of the Apes trailers available. That was just the one that I sort of found had the most interest to a sort of modern audience.
Great point, Christian, about the transitions, right? Because that's like, right, you can't talk to anybody who cuts trailers right now and you ask them like, hey, what transitions do you like? And they're like, oh, I love the one frame dissolve. Or like dip to black. Is that a transition? I don't know. That's what I do. But back then, it's literally like they were like attempting to use every switcher wipe, like that was
everything
there,
they had.
and
They had,
and it's just totally different. Like I don't know why, whether it's now just because we're just numb to that, and we feel like that's like kind of dated in terms of doing that. But you definitely never see any aggressive transitions anymore unless it's like Star Wars. Like even then, not in the trailers, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But it's interesting.
But even some of the like a compositing work that they've done, I don't know if you actually saw in the portion of the trailer that we were watching, but I definitely saw them, doing some almost kind of artsy, like designy stuff with like picture in picture and like like clips like repeating in like a Venetian blind type of style. And I actually this is the first.
Oh, we lost you.
Oh no, we've lost him.
That's all right.
We've lost you.
Oh, he's trapped.
He'll be back.
That's okay. He'll be back. He'll be back.
Well,
I'm gonna keep him on that frame, by the way.
Oh no.
Just to talk to your earlier point, Brian, about the reluctance of the use of the transition. I actually cut a sort of a retro style trailer for Knives Out. It was the final trailer that they released like week of the film debuting, and the director had in his head, Rian Johnson's a film fanatic, and he wanted like an Alfred Hitchcock style trailer. So I was, asked to cut this trailer, and I went back and I rewatched all these old classic trailers, and I was just like, oh, what can I steal? What can I borrow? And so the trailer's littered with like, all sorts of like diagonal wipes, and I was doing some interesting like weird sort of circular vignettes and stuff like that, and I played with colorizing and just simple matting around objects within frames and making the whole trailer black and white and giving it like a real film look. And pretty sure I used some Sapphire stuff for that. So I would say check that one out. That was a lot of fun to cut for sure. But yeah, I mean, whenever we can, I think sneak in some sort of classic editing motif. I always try to do it. So
you know what I love? I don't know if anyone's out there watching Fargo on FX. It's one of my favorite shows, but their use of split screens and like triple boxes and so stylistic, and definitely helps to tell the story. So yeah, if it's put in there and has like a motivation, I think it can totally be successful.
Agreed.
I think that's the point, isn't it? There needs to be a motivation for it rather than just the sake of showing off the shiny toys, because I think that the shiny toys is the bit that people are jaded to, maybe. If there's no real reason for it. And I didn't realize that you'd actually cut that version of the Knives Out trailer, because guess which trailer got me to watch Knives Out?
Oh,
yeah,
I wonder which one.
I wonder which one. Let's jump forward again another few years. We're going to jump into the 70s now with one of my favorite disaster movies, Earthquake from 1974.
Let me push the button.
Come on, you know what you're doing with the button pushing.
I have never seen Earthquake.
It's a classic disaster. You need to see it. You need to see it. It's
this people just going out the windows.
Oh, you've not seen anything yet.
Universal has enriched this fascinating drama of interwoven lives with a superb cast. Charlton Heston, Ava Gardner.
He's back.
George Kennedy, Lorne Greene, Genevieve Bujold, Richard Roundtree, Margot Gortner.
I mean, bring back the title runs, people. Let's do it.
Millions of people living, loving, planning, fighting, until nature's most violent upheaval forces them to battle and claw for life itself.
And again, this is a much longer trailer that has been chopped down for the sake of time here. I think the original is heading into 3 minutes. This is cut down to about 1 minute 15 or something.
How great to call out the writers and producers so far into the trailer, and then also superimpose that over this giant flood occurring. This trailer actually made me incredibly anxious. I lived in LA for about 10 years, having had moved back to the East Coast recently, and we had our share of earthquakes. And as a kid who grew up in Brooklyn, never experiencing an earthquake, it's terrifying. So this trailer actually like really frightened me. You know, it was that tried and true experience of what the big one is going to be like. And I got to say, the effects in this film are incredible. One thing I noticed specifically about this trailer, as in some of the previous trailers too, and if you watch any retro trailers, sound effects, whatever that sound effect layer is, whenever there's a hard cut from whatever the action is that's being displayed on screen, there's a hard cut of the sound. But in this trailer, when the earthquake was happening in between shots, it sounded as if there was like a trailing off or like a tail that they added to it to kind of make that sound effect, be a little bit smoother. But there are some trailers, I mean, I was just watching a bunch of trailers for like Rambo 3 recently, and there are just hard stops to sound effects. And that's like 10 years after this film. And it's really interesting to pick up on that, as how sound editing became a focal point eventually as part of the experience. So
I also think this trailer is a great example of the popular idea of the pedigree, the concept of pedigree, like who are going to be in the movie, which studio produced it, who wrote it. And that idea of pedigree, as a movie studio, that's kind of a natural thing for them to do, because if there's like an existing fan base or just fans in general, you want to whet their appetite, so to speak. And that concept of pedigree is still very much alive in the art of trailer making these days. It's quite important, but not quite in the way that it was back in the 70s, but it's still very much there.
Well, yeah, and all of that was very explicitly called out, not just with title cards, but in the voiceover, like right from the very first line. The voiceover was about the studio rather than about the film, which was which I thought was quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was something. Oh no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Universal Pictures has given its best efforts into producing Earthquake or something like this. So I think we sort of talked over the first line, which is fantastic.
Yeah, but it's so interesting to have had called themselves out. I think they must have been looking at like a tremendous box office track record enough to say, hey, you like our movies, so you're going to like this one, which is great. I mean, it's great to see. And, I still think, and there's all these new rules about logo placement, especially in modern trailers, and how the logos are presented. And I remember watching trailers back in the day, and when you saw a certain studio logo, it would just build excitement. And that was at the start of the trailer. It'd be like, a boom hit, some cool sound effect, and Warner Brothers would come up, or 20th Century Fox, and you'd see that classic crossfade, and they'd be like, ooh, I know what I'm in for, or like a Miramax or New Line Cinema trailer. When you saw those logos, it would just immediately pique your excitement.
Yeah, Amblin, I see an
Oh
Amblin
yeah, for
come
sure.
up, right?
Yeah.
Lucasfilm, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that the Tropic Thunder also played off on. The introduction of all of its characters was done through trailers, and each of them were starting with the different studio showing that type of film that the actor was best known for producing. That's so it's there is a language to not just the studio, but the trailer itself. I think we need to get on into the 80s now.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
And this is we're here. This is we're going to go back in time.
Yes.
Hold on. There we
Marty
go.
leads an ordinary life.
No McFly ever amounted to anything in the history of Hill Valley.
Yeah, well, history is going to change.
And 1985 is not his year. But Dr. Brown is about to change all that.
Are you telling me you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
He's sending Marty 30 years back in time.
It works! It's a flying saucer from outer space!
Now, he's trapped in the past.
It's got to be a dream.
About to meet
Chocolate.
his future father.
He's a peeping Tom.
Wow!
And he's making an impression on his mother.
It's an absolute dream. And he can sleep in my room.
Anything you do could have serious repercussions on future events.
Now, he's got to make his mother and father fall in love.
For crying out loud, I haven't even been born yet.
And only Dr. Brown can help him get back to the future.
Are you telling me that this sucker is nuclear?
Precisely.
Michael J. Fox.
Whoa, this is heavy.
Christopher Lloyd.
There's that word again, heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
Back to the future.
There we go.
Good stuff.
Man, amazing.
It's great. It's great.
Nostalgia, yeah.
You know, something, you know, the talkbacks to the VO are just so great and so well orchestrated in that piece. And, you know, using the Huey Lewis in the News, you know, song made for the film was just, it's the best. It's the best. This trailer came after what I think is one of the best teasers ever made, which was like a special shoot teaser that they did for the first film, where it's like super close-ups of, you know, Marty's feet, and then he opens the door to the DeLorean, and then he's toggling all the switches, and then the trailer ends with like the window coming down, and you know he delivers his like cool guy line, dropping his sunglasses, and then the final shot. And I'm thinking about this, like, if I was a movie-going audience member and seeing this in like 1984, whenever it was, before the movie came out, I would have been freaking out because it was the coolest thing. Like all you hear is the sound of the time machine and just fire trails. And this is like gonna be the first introduction to whatever this movie is. It's just it's full on excitement. I really wish that we did more special shoot teasers these days. There's just something really really fun about them. Really, just it's a good place to be creative outside of the world of the film. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean, when you watch that is a very archetypal 80s trailer. You've got the big voiceover, story-driven voiceover, the talkback stuff, the exciting use of popular music now. And where do you see that, Yuhei, in sort of the lineage of where modern trailers are?
I mean, one thing I noticed, I just turned into like a little fanboy just watching that trailer. Like I just lost myself in it, you know.
Yeah, I did too.
I mean, that's the beauty of the trailers, and like, yeah, I mean, is there anything else that needs to be said, you know? One thing I noticed is the drastic change in pacing, especially, you know, compared to the 2 or 3 previous trailers that we watched. It's much faster paced. It's punchier. Like, you know, like Christian pointed out, the talkback between the VO and the sound bites from the trailer. It's really what I think characterize this decade and where trailer making has evolved to in this particular time in the lineage of trailer making, to borrow your term.
Yeah, it definitely has a different pace, a much sort of peppier pace, and that's not just because it's a comedy. There are I sort of picked almost a random film from the 80s to show this, but I think a lot of the trailers from that time period had similar sorts of cutting going on. There was a movement towards a faster cutting style, which was a bit more kind of sort of more in keeping with what we're seeing now, but in obviously a very, very different very different way. I think what I want to show before we get too sidetracked with that, I'm actually going to go into the next trailer from 1997. So we're jumping another 10 years, because I think this one shows us that same kind of idea, just taken, a bit further down the road. And this is not one of my favorite films, but is one of my favorite trailers from 1997, and it's the classic film Anaconda.
All right, everybody, double check your gear, make sure it's all on board. Pray you didn't forget your bug spray.
On the rivers of the Amazon.
Wow, it's unbelievable.
This river can kill you in 1,000 ways.
In the waters of the Anaconda.
There's a legend Kirishima worshipped giant snakes as gods, protectors.
Snakes?
No matter what you see.
This skin is 3 or 4 years old. Whatever shed it has grown since then.
No matter what you hear.
What was that?
There's something down there. That's right. No, I really mean it. I really mean it too.
Faster, come on!
No matter what you do.
Oh my God. Danny! He's not breathing.
No!
TriStar Pictures invites you on a journey into the grip of fear. Anaconda.
Oh, here we go. See there, that's the bit. That's the bit. There we go.
Wow.
There you go.
Bravo.
Love that movie.
Bravo.
Okay, now who's going to start with this one? Christian, let's start with you this time.
Man. I mean,
what we got something very interesting in this film that everyone mentioned the second that he started speaking. What's going on?
Jon Voight made some very bold choices with this character. And he's like, I'm a big fan of How Did This Get Made, the podcast. I believe that they've done Anaconda before on the show. And it's like somewhere between a Colombian accent, but he's also like kind of, I guess from Louisiana or something. I have no idea who this guy is, but just the sheer presence of him and his delivery is amazing. It's just so fun. And this is one of those classic, 90s thrillers, like creature feature, that was so, it was scary when you were a kid, like it was really scary. But when you rewatch this again and you see this anaconda towards the end of the film roaring, and it's a giant puppet, it's the best thing ever. This trailer, and just speaking to the mechanics of the trailer, so, Don LaFontaine, he's the guy, he's the inner world guy. He's one of the most famous voice actors in the world. He's the guy who was on every major film from probably like late 70s into the 90s, not excluding any other voice actors at the time. But like Don was the guy. And Don's the guy who has all the great stories told about him. He used to ride around town in his private limousine, like he really staked his claim in the industry as far as trailers go. But yeah, no, this trailer does something, as you can see from the leap from the 80s to the 90s, like in Back to the Future, they would supplant, they threw in that, the thing that stuck out to me the most in that Back to the Future trailer is, Marty is seen in danger at a certain point in the trailer, but like there's nothing preceding that or coming afterward that would make you think like, oh, here's the montage of action, that'll take us to the title. It was just like a random shot of the Palestinian dudes or whoever they are, the Libyans, sorry. The Libyan dudes firing the AK-47s at Marty, and then he's all of a sudden in the car. But like Anaconda, we're starting to hear how the production music is coming into play, where, that could have been a piece of score from another film, but it sounds like we're kind of leaning into production music. Just the way that the hits are working with the cards, the way that there's this crescendo of not only the music and sound effects, but the action as we're seeing it on screen before we drop down into that super awesome main title. That graphic blew my mind seeing that for the first time.
Oh yeah,
so ahead of its time. So ahead of its time.
Yeah, no, great stuff in there.
And just to kind of go back on
there's so much to unpack. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
Sorry, yeah, just to kind of go back on Don LaFontaine and just add my personal thought on it is that I mean, like Christian said, Don is the guy, right? Like when people just jokingly mock trailers and say, "In a world," like people are thinking his voice, right? Like, so like I feel like, yeah, I was gonna save this till later, but the interesting thing about trailers is that trailers are, you know, they are tools to market and promote these movies, but it certainly has over time become art form of its own. And I have an inkling, you know, it's somebody like Don LaFontaine who started to actually become a superstar on his own right, that we owe this evolution of trailer making. Because until then, I feel like voiceover artists were somebody who was kind of in the background explaining things. But when Don came along in the industry, he just became a star of his own. You know, he's part of this ensemble cast of movie trailers, and I personally feel like that's when trailers actually start to kind of have life of its own, and where we kind of ended up today, where, you know, there's just fans of trailers, and not even the actual movies, but the trailers and how we make, you know, trailers. So I you know, Don was long before my time, and I never had a chance to meet him, but I think we all kind of owe it to him to be in this industry and do what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's he was. I don't know any other, you know, VO artists who've inspired films about them. You know, that's a big mark that he left. You know, whenever anyone would talk about trailer voiceovers, that was the classic the classic voice, which, you know, inspired actually a lot of VO artists as well. And to get that same sort of style, and trying to figure out how to get that mic presence, you know, he really did leave a lasting impact on the industry.
On a young Ben Brownlee, perhaps.
Maybe on a young Ben Brownlee.
I mean, you know, like even hearing LaFontaine, he is the voice of my childhood, right? Like, I instantly takes me back to, you know, going to the cinema with my dad and sitting through these trailers, and, you know, in many ways enjoying them sometimes more than I enjoyed the movies. But it really is like, for anyone, you know, who's our age or our generation, it really does. It instantly just hits all those notes and, you know, takes me right back. Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you. Hey, thank you, Don. That was, you know, being a huge part of my childhood, and part of why I love the movies too. Like, let's not kid around. That's, you know, I was into trailers, absolutely. You know, and that really kind of sparked my love for film. So yeah, great to hear him.
Yeah, and just to briefly.
Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna sort of piggyback on what Yuhei was saying about bringing the artistry. I mean, this was a guy whose voice had such a presence, that, and his cadence and the way that he could alter his voice between like an action film or like a horror movie, you know, he brought performance art to the trailer. So like now trailer editors and the studios had a performer that they could rely on to help make the trailer even more of a spectacle, to make that performance like grow the attention of the audience, you know, like we were just saying, like Brian was saying, like we could all remember hearing Don's voice in the Total Recall teaser, which was like a camera that spun around Arnold Schwarzenegger's head, or the T2, was it T2 or one of the Terminator trailers. You know, he was all over the place, and he commanded your attention. So like, you know, VO artists today, you know, there just is tremendous amount of talent, and I think everyone's trying to follow in the footsteps of Don, and there's really great talent out there. So
yeah, one of the other things I wanted to talk about with that particular trailer was the sound design, but I've just noticed what the time is already, and we're going to have to sort of move on a little bit. But luckily, the next one we have, which is again another almost 10-year jump to 2006, this also has a lot of intricate sound design as well. And this was definitely a trailer of two halves, and I've just taken the second half of this trailer. This is from The Prestige 2006, and we'll let's have a little look at this and talk about what was going on.
Every great magic trick consists of 3 acts. The first act is called the pledge. The magician shows you something ordinary, but of course it probably isn't. The second act is called the turn.
He's obsessed with discovering your method.
The magician makes this ordinary something do something extraordinary. Huh. Now you're looking for the secret, but you won't find it. That's why there's a third act called the Prestige. This is the part with the twists and turns, where lives hang in the balance.
Julie, come on!
And you see something shocking you've never seen before. This was built by a man who can actually do what magicians pretend to do.
Real magic.
I know what you really are.
How does he do it? You want the truth. Nothing is impossible. Abracadabra.
No.
Oh, you cut just before the last little bit of button there.
I blew it. You want to go back or what?
It's fine. No, I think we're fine. I think we get the point. Yeah. So this trailer of two halves. The first half was very interesting and very, very nicely done, but it felt a bit more like a sort of traditional trailer. The second half took it into a different direction. So, Yuhei, talk to me a little bit about sound design here. Obviously, sound and rhythm are very, very important to the art of trailer cutting. What would you say? I mean, what are your thoughts about what you saw there, and how does that relate to how you approach cutting trailers yourself?
So I definitely feel like with this trailer, the style is definitely kind of, catching up to, very similar to what we do today. It's getting much more modernized, and the sound design is definitely like a key part of that. And I actually don't remember the whole movie, but there were a lot of sound that were added specifically for the trailer, and not necessarily from the actual film, to heighten that suspense of the whole piece and punctuate the pacing, the cadence of the trailer. And I'm not really sure if that Michael Caine explaining the turn and the prestige and all that stuff was actually like an ADR or like a something that was recorded specifically for the trailer.
It's part of the film. It's a big part of the story. Yeah, it's a big scene.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, that's one thing that's a huge departure with this one from all the previous trailers. That there's no voiceover. It's all from the movie, and that's a huge thing, because that continues to this day. In the trailer, typically, unless it's kind of a special kind of conceptualized teasers, we don't typically use voiceovers. Definitely not in trailers or teasers. So that's definitely a huge thing. And another thing, last thing I want to mention that we actually didn't get to see from what we play there, but there's a little cold open of the trailer before we see the logo of the studio, and that's another technique that we still use to this day. And I don't know when exactly it started. Maybe it might have started even back in the 90s or even 80s. I'm not really sure. But I thought this trailer was a great example and kind of pointing that technique out, the cold open. It kind of disorients you and really piques your interest, and then studio logo, here comes the show kind of thing.
Yep. That's I think that's something, because we didn't see the beginning of this actual trailer, so I think we do have it somewhere. If Brian wants to just cue that up, if you can cue that up.
You got
This
is just.
I
mean, is it people? Is it me?
He had his button.
Is it me?
He had his button already. His next button.
You know what,
ready,
guys? I can't work like this. All right. So is that the beginning of the?
Very beginning. Yeah. Especially a gun click.
No. If you go.
That's the
this is the second half. This is the second half. Yeah. Go to the next bit. There's a whole bit of black
We're
in the middle.
live, people. We're live.
Yeah.
No.
No.
This is how we do it.
I reformatted. Why don't you guys just talk amongst yourselves, and I'll just go re-import the other trailer.
Oh, don't worry about it.
It's like
Christian, can you?
Go ahead.
Can you talk a little bit about the just about the tempo, just about what's going on with the rhythm in that trailer or in the second part?
There's some really, really, really nice things happening. I mean, between that sort of warping sound design that perfectly complements the text transitions. That is something that's really cool. I love really complex graphics in a cut, and it falls in line with what the movie is. I love when the tone of the trailer matches that of the tone of the film, and it isn't such a tremendous departure. That speech from Michael Caine might have been edited or re-recorded to help, to have been read to a script more specific to the needs of the trailer editor. So in the course of constructing the cut, that I remember specifically that scene in the movie where Michael Caine is describing the acts of the magic trick, and that to me now being a trailer editor would have leapt out from the film as being, okay, this is the grid. We so often in the process of cutting a trailer will look for bits of dialogue, long grids of a single character's speech that could work for a large portion of the film and maybe even get to the core of what the film is without having to rely on some extra ADR or some VO or even cards to tell the story. So, that's something I look for all the time. That this was done masterfully, and
that's an
clearly
industry term.
And cleanly and concisely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another industry term. Grid is another industry term. Cold open that I mentioned earlier is another. It's just the name of the techniques that we trailer editors use and often refer to. Grid is a huge one.
Cold open. Unless you want to take this, Yuhei.
No, go for it.
Is typical. It's when you're dropped into a scene, just cold. No upfront logos, nothing that will. You usually get the green band, and you wait after the green band about a second, and it'll probably drop you right into a scene. I'm sorry, I'm unfamiliar until Brian gets the trailer up with what the opening scene is. I'm sure it's one of the magic acts.
Oh my god.
Take your time, dude. It's fine.
I'm just ripping YouTube over here. So thanks, guys.
I mean, it's
it's in my original file. Come on.
I'm gonna politely disagree.
That scene without any sort of explanation. It's just like you're really dropped in cold. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You don't even know when this happens or what kind of significance it has in the whole story. But you just kind of dropped in just to kind of intrigue you right off the bat. Because this is one of the things actually Christian taught me. Was that within that first 5 seconds, you have to find a way to grab your audience. And that's what we have to do as trailer editors, I mean, it kind of goes with the commercial editors too, but trailers, because you're, dragging audience into this long 2.5 minutes, typically, ride. So you really have to grab the audience and make sure they're right in that seat and not going anywhere.
Well, while you're talking about that, who is typically in the edit suite with you when you've actually got your cut done? What's the approval process for that? Because obviously that can't be a simple process when there's so much, so much on the line for getting a trailer right.
I'll let Christian take this one first.
Oh yeah, well, such is the case now. Is he over here? Chewie over here. This is my producer, Chewbacca. He watches all my cuts all day long.
Nice. Yeah. Breathing down his neck.
I mean, Chewie's asleep in the back. What's going on?
Yeah, no, he's tired. No, typically, I'll just speak to my own experience. At Trailer Park, we're, as editors, sort of left alone with a film for several days. Some editors prefer to have like a final, like full vision cut before they show it to a producer or a creative director. But we do work with, producers, creative directors, junior producers, coordinators, graphics teams, music teams. At any point during the process of beginning to cut, we can call upon all these people to get their input. Which is super helpful. So, the trailer process, the trailer making process is very collaborative. If you choose to have it that way. Some editors might prefer to go solo for the whole time and then not show a creative director or producer until the end of the process, the end of the week or 2 week, whatever it is. Obviously now it's very different where, I don't have anyone coming into my room to watch an edit, so I don't really get to control just how loud the trailer is or if I need to bump something up in the room, which was, I think, all of our favorite things to do, which is when we all were competing on a trailer together, you would hear the trailers play from one room to the next room to the next room to the next room, like super loud, blowing out the walls down the halls. Now the experience is, we'll be given, let's say, a week or two to cut a trailer. If we're stuck, it's helpful to share our cuts as is with someone who's also familiar with the movie. Getting an extra pair of eyes on and another brain and another creative person to look at what it is that you're doing to help you solve those problems is always beneficial. I miss the days of going into other editors' rooms just to watch what they were cutting, whether or not it was the same movie we were working on, or I prefer to watch something that I wasn't working on just to get inspired, just to to learn by watching. So yeah, it's a really interesting process.
I have it.
You have it.
I have it.
Okay, Brian. Let's see. This is definitely going to be worth it now.
What were we talking about?
This is. I mean, it's so built up at this point. It's so built up.
Is it Anaconda again?
There we go.
This is Jaws. Shout out to Kino Check.
Shoot me. Come on.
No, I can't
Do it. How'd you like that?
How do you do it?
Magic.
I'll perform this feat in a manner never before seen by yourself.
Right? Yeah,
So very good. Very, very good.
It's a great example.
And this again is this.
No,
sorry. Carry on, Christian, please.
No, I was just gonna say, like, right off the bat, you have a point of intrigue and thrill. Shoot me. That line carries a lot of weight behind it. And then he's handing her a musket. So it's like, how's this going to pan out? You get this beautiful, crescendo of music to the gun going off, and you're getting the sort of the idea of the movie right off the bat. Where she asks, "How'd you do that?" He says, "Magic." Boom, right into logos. It's like it's everything that you can expect for what you're about to witness. So it's really
that's
good.
it. That's the film in 10 seconds.
No, when you hear, how'd you do it? You can almost feel like the audience kind of leaning in to like wanting to know the answer, and then boom, like the logo drops, and it's all intentional.
Yeah,
it's
fantastic.
I mean, like when you have actors like are in this movie and you have performances that are being given, the fact that they just played that scene and opened it up and had I mean, it's just, that says it all. Like instantly I'm like, I'm seeing this movie. Like I want to watch it again. I've watched this movie like 30 times, right? But like I'm like, I gotta watch it. I gotta watch it again. I mean, Christian Bale's amazing in it, absolutely amazing. And it's a phenomenal movie too. So this is definitely my style. Like opening up with a little cold open like that and just sucking people in. That's really what does it for me. What I really enjoy.
Yeah, I knew I was seeing this film within the first 10 seconds of that trailer. It was, yeah. We're going to move on. We are actually running a little bit short of time. How are you as guests doing for time?
If you guys knew,
can we run a little late?
We have prepared an 8-hour live stream. We literally have about 70 trailers to get through, and like we haven't even got through Ben's open.
This was meant to be the first 10 minutes. I'm really sorry.
Amazing.
This happens.
Sitting back here, I'm ready. Yeah, ready.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, we'll take a bit of time, and then there we go. That's that's the edit room special. We're going to move to 2014. We're almost in the present now, in the close past. We're going to have a look at a film from 2014, Godzilla.
I want to talk to somebody in charge. You are not fooling anybody when you say that what happened was a natural disaster. You're lying. It was not an earthquake. It wasn't a typhoon. It's because what's really happening is that you're hiding something out there. And it is going to send us back to the Stone Age.
Well, there's nuclear tests in the Pacific. Not tests.
They were trying to kill it.
You have no idea what's coming.
Can you kill it? The arrogance of man is thinking nature is in our control.
Okay, I think we can fade down a little bit now. There we go. I think we get the idea of what's going on here. Yeah, there are a few things that we've already talked about a little bit with this. Yuhei, you can talk a bit more, because this seemed like a classic trailer for using, you know, what you were talking about, the technique of the grid again. Can you talk a little bit more to that?
Well, this is where it starts to get really fun, because we actually get to talk about our colleagues who did these trailers. Christian,
we're at the right time now.
This is Scott Palmer's piece, right?
Oh, yes, it is.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
So basically, yeah, this trailer is like a piece of shit. Yeah. It's garbage.
Where's that 10-second delay?
It's that button. It's the big button.
Yeah. No, but I mean, you're right, Ben. This is like the great example, and in a very like much, you know, today's like artistic sensibility in terms of the use of the grid. It's just so captivating. It's just cut so well. Just the sound design, even just like, you know, how the you know, similar to the way Christian was describing about the Prestige graphics, like how the titles come up. It's all very intentional, like such a intricate, you know, techniques that are really well executed there. I don't really have much else to say, because like, and I think the teaser for this movie was the teamwork between Kim Wong and Scott Palmer. Is that right, Christian? That whole parachuting down.
Yeah, both Kim and Scott co-cut the teaser. I believe it was like the opening of Kim's trailer and the back half of Scott's. But again, it was like a really the teaser was also a cold open of these guys paratrooping with this great grid of the general kind of explaining what the operation was. You know, this movie is known for having hid the monster a little too much, but I do think that the way that the marketing campaign so masterfully hid the monster gave it that Jaws quality. You know, it really, like, you guys don't know what you're in for. and all these like big lines, these like scary setup lines were perfectly used. And I remember when both Scott and Kim were working on this campaign, and I think I was a junior editor or assistant editor at the time, and I could hear this again down the hallway and was just like, what is happening? You know, when the office
you just
walls
want to
are
be that fly on the wall, right? You just want to be that fly on the wall, like.
And I got to be that, you know, very fortunately, I got to see these trailers in the offices of the guys who created them and watch as it developed and evolved. And, you know, Scott Palmer is one of my senseis. He's the guy who taught me how to do like everything when it comes to trailers. Scott is a drummer and musician, and also a skateboarder, which is, you know, and skater, which we both connected on. But, you know, Scott has this natural rhythm and tempo that you could actually, you know, this is one of his most stripped down trailers. If you think about his timeline and what you might see on his timeline, it was like a very minimized version of what I typically see from Scott Palmer, which is like a bunch of different layers of music, a bunch of different layers of sound effects. He stripped it down. I mean, like I remember looking at his timeline while watching the trailer and going, there's like only just a few things here, but they were done and cut with such impeccable timing and like lingering on a shot and lingering on a cross dissolve and lingering on a fade. Like really took his time to really balance it out. And of course, you know, much like the teaser, he got to use that great Rise piece of score from 2001: A Space Odyssey. So, I mean, that's all over this trailer, and it gives it such a gravitas and such an energy. But yeah, it also has the bombs that everyone always calls out. So,
I just want to add something real quick. So this is kind of an inside thing, but like, you know, you made it as a trailer editor when people referring to your trailers as so-and-so special. And this was definitely Scott Palmer special. You know? And I mean, that's when you know that like people have recognized your work within the industry, and like even some of the directors will want to like work with you, you know, let alone the studios. But you know, Christian Capello-Colon special, Scott Palmer special, Kim Wong special. I'm still trying to get there myself, but that's just kind of like a little insider thing. Like when your style is so strong and has such a presence and signature on a trailer, that's when you have your own special.
Seems we need to get you using a lot more wipes now for that to be your signature move. I think we've cracked it here tonight. That's there's a ton I want to talk about a bit more with this trailer, but I've got to do a couple of things. I've got to actually take some questions from chat. I've been ignoring chat today because this has been my time to geek out. But there's a couple of things about process and a couple of things about content. I think we'll start with one of the ones about content and going back to spoilers, because obviously that's something you're going to be hearing a lot. It's like, why do you put all these spoilers in trailers? When it comes to the information that you reveal, how much of the story do you know in advance, and how much of these big beats do you understand, you know, the importance of them in terms of the whole story? Christian, I think you can take that one.
Yeah, no, this is an excellent question. You know, generally speaking, if we're lucky, we will get an early version of a feature. So, you know, we'll get the movie in full. We'll get, you know, 6 to 8 reels worth of a film that we could, you know, break down and spend some time to sit with. So this way we really get a feel for what the movie is before we start trying to sell it and sort of repackage it and reform it. In other cases, like such as the case with working with Christopher Nolan, he gives us non-sequential sequences in a matter of maybe, I think the most we've ever gotten is like 4 or 5 reels worth. And it's random selects from throughout the film. And we won't actually see a feature until we work on home entertainment. for any of the Christopher Nolan movies. So that in and of itself, if you don't get to read the scripts, which are usually pretty locked down and super secure, you know, we're having to determine what the story is. So such was the case working on Tenet this year and last year. You know, we had to try to repackage a complicated narrative, but also make it super exciting. But yeah, with getting the full feature, you know, we have a lot more at our disposal. As far as spoilers go, you know, that's the question that we tend to ask the most at the beginning of a project. Like, is there anything that's off limits? Is typically what we wind up asking, so that, you know, if there are directors who are immediately beholden to like a third act reveal, we stay away from those reels, you know. I remember specifically cutting the Captain America Civil War trailer and was like, ooh, am I going to be allowed to get Spidey in this trailer? And I think I was the only person out of all the other shops to do the button that wound up in the end of the trailer revealing Spider-Man, the very first time we get to see the MCU Spider-Man at the end of the trailer. Because I knew as a fanboy that if I saw that, my ticket's already bought, you know? Like I'm in 100%. I mean, it's undeniable, you know? But yeah, I mean, Yuhei, what's your experience been with that? I mean, we tend to work on a lot of the same movies, so, you know, it's kind of the same. But
yeah, I mean, when it comes to spoilers, I think Christian's pretty much covered it. I mean, there are certain things, especially when it comes to like a high-profile franchise or, you know, Christopher Nolan movies. Like, there are obviously certain things that you can't reveal. But interesting thing Christian mentioned about, you know, Tenet, for instance. Christopher Nolan stuff is just so confidential that even the promoters can't watch some of those things. One thing Christian didn't mention was that some of these reels are redacted. Sometimes you can see just the audio, but like what in the reel that you get, you just see like a blank space. Or sometimes the audio cuts out, and you just feel like, is that a mistake? But it's actually intentionally being redacted by the studio so that even the people who are promoting the film can't, you know, spoil it for the, you know, the public. It's just that high security. But typically, you know, spoilers are something that we, as marketers, like, you know, ask the clients about, and clients are very, you know, comes forward with it. But yeah, it's definitely kind of like, unless it's very intentional, like Christian's case with the Spidey, you know, Civil War. Yeah, it's locked tight.
Right. That's fascinating. That's great. That really answers that one. Mr. Brian.
Yeah, let me bring in a question that, you know, I know, so it seems obvious to a lot of us that know this, but I think it's good to talk about, like, when you are cutting a trailer, like, what is your role in the sound design? Like, I mean, talk to us about building that soundscape. Like, is it you from scratch? Like, are you putting together everything? Are you building it? Like, what is your process when you sit down regards to the sound on some of these, like, masterpieces? Let's go with Yuhei. Let's go with Yuhei.
Yeah, he's the master of this.
No, I mean, I was going to say, like, we can't really talk about the sound of trailer making without, you know, mentioning the huge role that the music department plays. For instance, at Trailer Park, you know, Bobby Gum, he's the guy. Like, he kind of goes out and he has all the connection, the network to reach out to all these labels and, you know, pull. And like, he is just so, like, on the same wavelength with the editors. Like, he just know what to ask for these labels to gather what we call a music cue pool, you know. And so we don't have to just kind of, as editors individually, go out into this vast universe of sound and just kind of spend so much time looking for things. It's honestly like a needle in a haystack kind of task. But so, you know, somebody like Bobby in any shop will have like a select bucket of music cues to pull. And, you know, as editors, we go through that. But, you know, sometimes, like, editors going into a project, they already have some sort of idea of, for like a song or something based on the creative brief that you have with your clients. Sometimes, I think Christian can probably talk about this more, but sometimes you will take a popular song and take it to a music composer that you work closely with, and this is another industry term, trailerize it. So make it more kind of have this grandeur and like the weight, sonic weight that's appropriate for a big trailer and that kind of emotional swell. So, but it typically always starts with music department. And, you know, again, this is just a great example that trailer making is a teamwork, you know?
Awesome. Yeah. How about in terms of the sound design, like the rises and all the modules, is that stuff you're bringing as an editor, or is that stuff that's done like after the cut? Like where in the process does building that soundscape of sound design kind of begin?
Yes,
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, just going back to what Yuhei was saying, you know, I think the first thing to be done on a timeline, at least as far as my process goes, is it's all about music. It's all about music. It's all about the rhythm and again, it's that word of the day, cadence. It's like, you know, the right song will either make or break your experience on your timeline making a trailer. You know, that's something that I learned from Scott. That's something I learned from Chris Park. Is, you know, it really sets the tone. Now, in the case of like sound design, that is by far my favorite part of the process. And I will have already cut my music bed. I will have already like laid in all my dialogue bites, you know, my story structure essentially. I will lay on, you know, whatever visuals that I think fit the best as it kind of moves along the music. And then the final part for me is always to sound design. And sometimes I'll even sound design ahead of like getting to finishing the visuals because I want to build a moment. So, you know, there are little tips and tricks that I've learned along the way of like, hey, you know what can replace this staccato drum rise? Gunshots. You know, you hear it all the time. Every single Fast and Furious trailer or like Hobbs and Shaw trailer. I did it a bunch in the To Kill Ya trailer for Baby Driver. You know, like you replace a rhythmic element with another sound, and it creates this like cool, nuanced sound design. But primarily, yeah, I mean, when we're looking for new and kind of like wild sound design, you know, we have these great resources. We have full-on music composing libraries. We have straight up sound designers that send us like huge, basically briefcases of folders of sounds. And I mean, there are millions of sounds out there. But I know in particular, especially at our shop, you know, we kind of pride ourselves in having our own unique little editors folders where we've kept our like standard go-to, I'm going to bring this into every project folder of your typical sound effects, you know, your whoosh hits, your rises, your you know, your gunshots, your gun clicks, you know, stingers, whatever you want to call them. And, you know, it becomes this brand new composition towards the end of the trailer making process where you have sound replacing the music or working in accordance with it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that's the really cool thing about this this process. I just want to add something. That's the really fun part about, you know, doing sound with the trailer editing, that like even if you end up using like a pre-existing you know, popular song or whatever, you have the ability to reach out to the label and get what's called, you know, splits. So like each instrumental element of the song is separated, so you can use them separately. And so you really get a chance to kind of deconstruct the music and almost even like recompose in a way that you want, and add in those, you know, sound design elements and whatnot. And that's another fun part. And then just to add to what Christian was saying about, you know, each individual editor definitely have their own stash of sound design elements, and I think one of the reasons like trailer editors do that is that so they can kind of cut back on the time on searching for the right sound. Myself, I typically keep limited selection of sound design elements that I can really apply to a lot of different occasions, just so that I don't have to kind of start my sound effects or sound design element search from scratch every single time I need something. And that cut back on the searching time, and that allows me to explore and experiment, implementing different ideas in different parts of the trailer. So that's why I think a lot of editors do it, to just cut back on that search time.
So, I mean, my final question on the sound then is, once the sound is done with you, is that then sent over to someone else to do the final mix on it, and to make sure that everything is, matching the tech specs and all the boring stuff that has to be going on to make sure that you can actually play it?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we have the benefit of not having to do the mixing ourselves. We're strictly offline editors. If I had to mix my own trailers, I'd pull my hair out. It would be a nightmare. Sometimes we're dealing with 30 tracks of audio. I've since scaled back so much from what I used to do. It was like a lot of excessive sound design. But we have great professional sound mixers. Tom over at SSI is a great guy to work with. He's someone I've worked with on a ton of my trailers. He's just a master of his craft. And we get an invite as editors to go to the mix, and that's part of like the most exciting parts of finishing a trailer, is getting to go to a mix. Chances are you'll be sitting there with your client, and then sometimes you'll even get filmmakers to show up at the mix too, to make sure that everything sounds as close to the offline QuickTime as possible. So, there have been instances where I've gone to mixes and it sounds nothing like the offline. And so you end up sitting there for a few hours in the day and like try to get it back to that place. And you're working with the mixers to do that. It's also a really exciting time because it's going to be the first time and probably last time you'll see your trailer in a theater, unless you happen to go out to the theaters whenever it launches. But I have never seen one of my trailers play in the theater. It's kind of this bizarre experience. Yeah, I've only ever seen them at the mix, and you're also seeing it as loud as you're ever going to see it out in the wild. And it's this great, like I said, it's, I'm a kid who grew up loving film. So for me to stand in the middle of like a mixing stage and having, 20 plus speakers beamed at me while I'm standing there watching something I've been cutting for the last like 8 months, like blasted in my face, it's great. It's really cool.
Fantastic. And while we're not mixers and we're just editors, during the offline process, we do have to, mix our trailers ourselves to a certain point that it becomes presentable to the clients for sure. And a lot of times, like when we're working, especially off of the dailies, of a movie, the audio quality is pretty bad. It's mostly just like a raw camera audio most of the time. So, you have to make sure that all the sound bites that you need that are essential to your storytelling in the trailer, you have to make sure that's audible. And if you can kind of EQ it yourself, I'm a great example. I'm not an EQer. I run to the music department to ask for assistance in, either cleaning up the audio, make it a little bit more audible. In that sense, it's again, it's a teamwork.
I mean,
there was that, the famous example with Brokeback Mountain, where the trailer of, I Wish I Knew How to Quit You was very, very loud and very, very prominent part of the trailer. But in the film, it's there, but it's very, it's very low down in the mix. It's a whispered line rather than a big, presented line, which is how we saw it before.
I mean, I will say, like, Yuhei, you and I both work together. Christian, I've never had the pleasure, but Hey, you definitely are a mixer, right? Like your temp mixes are they're not like my temp mixes, right? So, you're right. But I joke, but seriously, like, your whole goal is to sell your cut, right? So, like, you're gonna make it sound as good and as beautiful as possible. And I love that point you bring up that I don't think a lot of people understand, like dealing with dirty bites, right? Dealing with not clean audio. Like, sure, like, you're going to reach out and try and get stems and you're going to try and do all this stuff. But like, you're still having to sell your cut at this point, right? So you got to work with what you have. That was a big eye opener for me the first time I got a DVD. When someone said cut off this, and I was like, what? Like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, this is crap, but yeah, you guys definitely do so much pre-work, to sell that cut. It is amazing.
I just have one more thing to say about this. It's funny that we're talking about mixing our trailers because, yeah, we all kind of do our part in trying to get them to sound as good as possible. Especially, the note I always get kicked back is like, oh, make sure you could hear the dialogue. And sometimes we deal with, like Yuhei was saying, like super muddy dialogue, meaning that just there's like background sounds that they couldn't isolate. And, no matter how many filters we put it through, we can't really hear it. But there is this experience of, if you are too careful about your mixes and you mix it, just below the peaking audio point, chances are every other editor who's going to be sending a trailer has super hot trailers, meaning that they just play at super loud volumes. And if a client is playing the trailers in a row and your trailer has to be, if your trailer is like low on the volume spectrum, they're cranking it up. And by the time they get to the next guy's trailer, if they're in the red, they're blowing out their eardrums. Like it's a challenge. Dude. So like, we mix within reason, I would say.
So true.
No, no, that's not correct. That's one thing I noticed. No, dude, you motherfucker, you guys like love to play it so freaking loud. That's one thing I noticed because I wasn't always a trailer editor. Just coming from like the broadcast world and the advertising world. Yeah. I went deaf within like the first week. Like, I would like pop in and say, hey, can I see a work in progress trailer or whatever? And these guys just blast it from the speakers. The speakers are right in front of me, right? So that's one thing I know. And sadly, I have adjusted to that. Like I like fully embraced that. I'm sitting right actually next to Bobby Gunn, the music guy, and when he's doing this like music, I'm just like blasting against his wall, and like his wall is shaking, right? But that's what we do, man. Like, because we have to really kind of put ourselves in that position of like, what if I was watching this in the movie theater? And you really kind of try to replicate that environment. So, that. Yeah, that perspective is so important. So yeah, you just have to. I get it now.
Well, I've got one more film that we need to get to, but I'm also very, very conscious that we've run over time. Do you guys have 10 more minutes?
Sure.
Yeah. What are they gonna say?
Fantastic. Now? Great.
Hey Ben,
that's the thing.
Let's quickly.
I want to do something for. I want to do a prize. I want to do a prize.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's part of the thing.
Oh, sweet.
All right. Who won?
Professionals
here.
I don't know. You've got to tell me by putting it up on the screen. It is Kristen Goshorn. Kristen. Well done. Christian has won a 12-month subscription of Boris FX Suite.
Yeah.
So that is Sapphire, Continuum, Mocha Pro, Silhouette, and Optics.
I've seen Kristen in the chat. I've seen Kristen. How about this? Christian calls trailers the most appreciated marketing material ever. So big up to Kristen. Congratulations.
Oh, well
great
done.
Comment too. Great comment.
Nice.
That's great stuff. And we will be in contact with you in the next week with your prize. So we know who you are. We know how to get in contact with you. So
I know what you want to show, Ben. I know what you want to show.
You know what I want to show, and you know why I want to show this.
Yeah.
This is a trailer from 2019, and this is a trailer that is near and dear to my heart because this is an example of a trailer that completely sold me, not just on a film, on a concept of a film that sounded so completely ridiculous, no one was ever going to watch it and it was going to be terrible. And then you saw the trailer and you realized that everything was going to be fantastic and this was going to be the best thing in the world. And the trailer was absolutely right. So please play our final trailer of the day from 2019. The trailer is, I'm not going to say what it is, just play it.
Welcome to Rhyme City, a celebration of the harmony between humans and Pokemon.
Tim, your dad was a legend in this precinct. If you were anything like your dad...
I'm not.
I remember. You wanted to be a Pokemon trainer when you were young.
Yeah, that didn't really work out. Someone there? Whoever you are, I know how to use this.
Oh, jeez. Here we go.
I know you can't understand me, but put down the stapler or I will electrocute you.
Did you just talk?
Whoa. Did you just understand me?
Oh my God, you can understand me. Stop. I've been so lonely.
They try to talk to me all the time. All they hear is Pika Pika.
You can hear him, right?
Pika Pika! Yeah, Pika Pika Pika, he's adorable.
You're adorable. They can't understand me, kid.
Can no one else hear him? I don't need a Pokemon, period.
Then what about a world-class detective? Because if you want to find your pops, I'm your best bet.
We're gonna do this. You and me.
There's magic that brought us together, and that magic is called hope.
Listen up. We got ways to make you talk. Or mime.
Yeah.
So tell us what we want to know. Pipe. Yes. Okay. I can. Shoving. Pushing. My problem is that I push people away and then hate them for leaving.
He's saying you can shove it.
What? I can shove it? Okay, that's it. No, we're switching roles. I'm bad cop. You're good cop.
No, we're not cops.
In my head, I saw that differently.
Yes.
So, people in the chat were saying, oh, this film's definitely going to be 1917. This was a bit more up my alley than 1917. I've seen this film now 4 times. Please talk to me a little bit about what this is doing right, or what this is doing, in fact, and then we'll talk about what this is doing right.
Before I get that, I almost want to hear your story about why this is. It's always fascinating to me. Again, this is a trailer that was done by one of our fellow colleagues, Mike Davis. And, you know, I mean, I have a lot to say about it, particularly just the song choice. And I mean, I can't overstate the importance, I mean, the brilliance, I would say, of when the right song meets the right content. Maybe you say the way around. Right content meets the right music. And, you know, music has this like power that it just takes you back to a certain point in your life, right? And trailer editors get to kind of play with that, experiment with that. And when things go right, just magic happens, you know? And this trailer is just the great example, I think. And me personally, I just have a lot of respect for Mike Davis's music choice, music approach. And that's something, you know, one of the big things that I've learned by entering the trailer editing and learning from these guys, and always just try to surprise the audience, but at the same time, it just feels so right.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that the music choice is probably the thing that sold me the most, is that you've got different versions of the song, sort of, or not different versions, but different parts of the song sort of popping in at the right time, and it brings you in right at the very end and leaves you with that earworm so you can't help but think about the trailer for, I would say days afterwards. Some people would say, hours afterwards, but no, days afterwards, and you sort of go back and it's still in there. I think this is a actual, masterful piece of trailer editing. And it sort of goes, it really speaks to the sound design that we were talking about previously as well. But I want to sort of piggyback on that and actually move topics a little bit with Christian and talk just about the tempo, the cadence, as you we've been talking about before. And sort of talk to me a little bit about what was going on in this trailer.
Yeah, I could totally speak to that. Believe it or not, and this is something that happens often with, working with such great talent in the same building, is I had a trailer for this movie that had a scene that focused on the Mr. Mime portion of the film, which I thought was so brilliantly done. And mind you, we were working on this film when they had 0 animated creatures. So it was like really tiny, small guys and gals in green screen makeup with tennis balls on their heads, like basic pantomiming the mime sequence. So that mime sequence in the middle of Davis's trailer came from my piece that I had cut. So this is just the give and take of what happens. The studio sees something that they like, they put it in there. But Davis he hit a grand slam with the way that we had this beautiful orchestrated piece of the Pokemon theme at the top, as we're getting to learn who our main character is, what he might be doing in Rhyme City. We're getting this sort of VO from Bill Nye's character talking about Rhyme City. So we're getting to the sort of gist of the movie. And then all of a sudden, hard stop, let's introduce ourselves and the audience to Pikachu, the real star of the movie, And of course, the first time you see this cute little fluff ball with the voice of Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds, you're like, oh man, we're in for it now, And every bit of the cheekiness of that character is kind of present throughout. So you typically want to find a piece of music that can be as playful as the movie that you're trying to sell. So such was the case with this, with using that So Happy Together. It just ties so perfectly to the Pokemon concept, but also it allows for a tempo and a rhythm that's super fun to cut to. Davis did some great work with the match on action kind of stuff where characters are moving or things are happening, with sound design that corresponds with it, that also is rhythmic to the music. Davis he's also he's a master when it comes to music and sound design, and usually is doing things a lot more sparsely, like his Bly Manor trailer that just came out for Netflix, but this was the case where he just he got to have a lot of fun. So, and you see that in the cut.
Absolutely do. Yeah. It's I think there's a lot of, this goes back actually to one of the questions that someone was asking about how you cut to the Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 sort of structure, and whether that's something that you feel is useful to you, something that is kind of useful, not just to you, but useful to the viewer. What sort of, when you're looking at a film, as much as the raw material of the film, as much as you've seen of it, where do you start to sort of shape that story? Do you go by the act structure, or are you just sort of plucking stuff that talks about the essence of the film? Yuhei, maybe you can take that one.
I'm actually more inclined to let Christian talk about this one, because I'm probably, I do it, but I don't really think about it as much. And the whole term of stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 thing was actually, I learned it from Christian. Those terms, I actually didn't even know those things existed. I always just kind of, I don't know, I kind of hacked it,
You went with your gut.
I'm here, so I guess it worked. But you know, I'm not really familiar with that structural concept. So I think I want to let Christian explain this one because you know, I want to learn about it properly too.
Yeah, well, I mean, the basis of like modern storytelling, especially as it pertains to filmmaking, is there's typically a 3-act structure, beginning, middle, and end. With trailers, you know, and this is something that I had to learn over time, is, you know, I never really thought about there being rules to a trailer, you know, like there being an actual structure or a skeleton that we should sort of abide by. And, you know, that's one of the first early things that you start to learn as you're constructing a long form trailer. You know, most editors, I'll just speak to my own experience, like I started out cutting 15-second and 30-second TV spots. And when you think about, you know, having a 4 or 5 second tag at the end of a 30-second spot, you have 25, 24 seconds, whatever, to tell a story. You know, how do you dilute a almost 2-hour movie into 30 seconds or 15 seconds? So you have to really get to the core of what the story is, you know? And I'm learning this term now as I'm reading some books about screenwriting. But the log line of any film is like a concise, like 2 to 3 sentence synopsis of what a film is. And you can apply that to a trailer, you know? Chris Park is the guy who told me, like, you know, figure out the soul of the film and try to, like, you know, take the soul of the film or what, you know, what the simplest message is of the film and imbue that into your cut. And there's so many tricks to getting to do that in a cohesive and comprehensible manner. I would say, and this is something that we get knocked for all the time, and this is the question that I get asked by everybody, family members, friends, why do you put the whole movie in the trailer? You know, that's what everyone always asks us. And I always have to get a little defensive that, you know, it's not necessarily our doing. Like I was talking earlier about how, you know, the simplest teaser idea, you know, simple is better. You know, you could do a lot less and say a lot more with being more mysterious, you know, and I long for the days where we could be a little bit more mysterious about how we're selling and marketing films. The problem is, you know, the goal is to sell tickets, you know, as artful and as creative as you want to be, you know, you want to sell movie tickets, and studios more often than not will look to testing trailers. And this is where things get, you know, exciting and nerve-wracking simultaneously, is when your trailer goes to test. And usually they're testing several trailers at a time at various markets, either, you know, somewhere in Middle America or somewhere in Europe, depending on whatever, you know, demo that they're trying to reach. And then it's all broken up, and they're usually pulling people in at like shopping malls, although now I don't know how that's going to happen, to like come sit down and watch trailers and then rate what their experience is like and their willingness or reluctance to go see a film. And then they take that information, they dilute it down, and more often than not, testing to the studios will, you know, basically reveal that the audience members want to know what's happening. So that's where you get caught with trailers that are wall-to-wall dialogue and exposition, you know? And again, I think on the onset of cutting a trailer, you know, if it's a trailer one or a treaser is what we call it, you could be a little withheld from having to tell the full arc of the story. By the time you get to trailer 2 or 3, that's when you could let a little bit more of the plot, you know, out there. One example of this I thought was done really well, again, is the Hobbs and Shaw campaign. You know, the first piece out was just like, hey, we need these guys to do this thing because of this bad guy. And they, you know, I think they opened the trailer with the bad guy moment. And he's like, I'm Black Superman, you know, that whole beat. And then it's just a bunch of fun for the final like minute of the trailer of just like the full thrill ride you're going to be on, but then also stopping down for great jokes. You know, I always look to those trailers as like, you know, and the fast trailers are just, they're just so well constructed. But yeah, no, there's a lot of trickery to condense that story into a cohesive piece.
Well, no, definitely. I think this is, yeah, that's a very, very concise way of getting over a very complex idea. Brian, do you have any last thoughts? Because we've got to wrap this up, I'm afraid.
I have so much. I feel like we've just begun.
This is the first 10 minutes of our plan.
I'll stick it
90 minutes later.
I'll stick it to the Pokemon trailer. For me, this was like, at this point in my life when this movie came out, I was the most anti-Pokemon person you could ever imagine. I was actually like physically offended at the thought of a movie, and then when I saw this trailer, I was like, oh, I'm gonna see that. Like, I'm gonna see that. So to me, this is like such a successful exercise in marketing that it turned like a jaded kind of viewer like me completely around, and all through editing and music, exactly like Yuhei and Christian were pointing out. Really, like I was putty like in his hands, you know, when watching this. By the way, am I crazy to think that was Ryan the first VO choice? Do you guys know who was the first
Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito, yes, that's what
Danny
it was.
DeVito I think when they
amazing.
I think when they first announced that, forgive me if I could be completely wrong, but I remember seeing the first articles coming out about them, getting the license to the character and making the film, that I think Danny's name was attached to begin with, and so people were making taking Frank from Always Sunny and putting him over Pikachu to hilarious effects. But then Ryan Reynolds was on this hot streak, and they grabbed him, and it worked.
Still is, right? Still is on a hot streak. He's amazing.
Full steam ahead.
Yeah, cool. Well, my friends, I mean, I would love to go, but
this has been a wild ride.
You guys actually have trailers to cut. Much thanks to Jessie, who's manning our chat, by the way, who had to run away because she was like, literally, I have to feed my child.
Oh no!
Thank you, Jessie.
Thank you, Jessie.
Yes. Ben, why don't you take us home?
I will. Yeah, I just want to say thanks again to our guests, Yuhei and Christian. I want to say thank you to everyone who's been watching out there. We are going to be doing more live streams. Hopefully, we will definitely do more chats with our two guests here today to talk about trailers, because we haven't scratched the surface. I've got a huge list of things to do. It's been a real pleasure. It's been thank you very much for sort of sharing what you've shared today. I do want to do a pitch though for what actually brought us here, and the idea of this actually stemmed from watching the Dune trailer, and that was something that actually just cut through the culture. Basically, it came at the right time, and it was doing a lot of the right stuff. We've been told in the last couple of days that the actual film's not coming out for a year and a bit, so we got a little bit more time to wait for that. But that trailer itself actually has inspired one of our other artists here, John Dickinson at Boris FX, to do a Dune-inspired motion graphics treatment, and showing how to actually get that sort of Dune look. It's about an hour long, split over a couple of different tutorials, and it is well worth a watch. And that's available at the borisfx.com or on our YouTube channel as well.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Oh gosh, here we go.
Wait.
Oh, here we go. Have we got a button to push?
I'm gonna push a button here. There we go. There's John's work building the Dune trailer.
Oh, sweet!
Look at that.
Pretty amazing. Huh?
Whoa!
No big deal.
Yeah. My gosh.
I'll play it again. He's using Sapphire, Continuum, right? He's using a lot of cinema. Building it from scratch.
And
Great
all
job.
this he's doing while he's checking the chat room.
Yeah.
That's it. He's definitely a multitasker.
Yes.
So definitely have a little watch of that, because that is there's some stunning work. I mean, I've been using After Effects for 20 something years now, and I still manage to learn a few good techniques off of John's tutorials. I never fail to learn stuff off of John's tutorials. So so definitely check that out. But thanks again to our guests. Thanks again to you, and thanks to Brian for your fantastic job doing not just co-hosting duties.
You guys ran me through it today. You guys ran me through it with your diva requests for prestige cold opens. I totally want to. Yuhei, let's talk about a podcast where people can learn more about trailers. Yeah. I know you have some advice for everyone out there who wants to kind of geek out more about trailers. Hit us up. What's the name of it? What's the name of it? No, I mean, like, what's the name of your? What's the name of the podcast?
yeah.
I mean, I'm throwing you a softball here. I'm like, I'm tossing it to you.
I was gonna say, so off. One thing I wanted to mention was that if any of the viewers today are interested in finding out more about the industry, there's a great podcast called Trailer Geeks and Teaser Gods, hosted by our fellow industry colleague Corey Nathan. And it's a series of interviews with basically industry titans. You may not know the names of these people, but you definitely know the work that they've done over the past few decades. So it's a great listen, and it really put the spotlight on the people who typically don't get the credit where it's due. I mean, at least not in the public eye. So it's really cool to hear about how they got their start and how they got to where they are today. So definitely give it a listen. And shout out to Corey Nathan for doing the good work for this industry.
Yeah, awesome. We will put the link in the description. So if people want to check it out, we'll put it in the YouTube description. I definitely want to check it out. Sounds like awesome. But thank you so much, guys. Amazing work. I could listen to you two talk all day long. Like you're both such like humble and talented gentlemen, and super introspective, and obviously what really comes across me is you guys are both doing what you love to do and doing what you were meant to do, and that's always fun to kind of get a chance to pick your brains and hear about your craft. So thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us today. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
That's as serious as
Thanks so much for having us.
That's good. So that's serious Brian's button.
Yeah. That was the Sapphire.
I'm excited for part
filter.
2.
Oh, part 2 is tomorrow. We're gonna do this again, right?
Oh God!
Same time.
Right. Well, this is going to be part of our continuing series of live streams. To find out more about all of the stuff that we're doing, head on over to borisfxlive.com and borisfx.com, where we'll be having a full calendar of our events that are coming up. So we're going to be doing this every couple of weeks, and the next one is a top secret subject right now, but it's going to be a lot of fun, like all of these. So, and obviously a nice tight 60 minutes each and every time. So thanks a lot for spending your time with us now, and I will see you again soon. My name is Ben Brownlee for Boris FX, and thanks for watching.